What is up everyone, welcome back for another episode of Level Up, the series where we're talking about taking your kayaking from class 3 to class 4 and finding those small but critical things that you have to change and improve and work on to get yourself there. This week I'm talking about portaging or portaging, depending on if you're from Canada or not.
Hotter out here than the Sugar Shack in spring, but
this is the act of carrying your boat around a rapid, and although it seems like we want to be going downstream more often, frequently, as we're trying to progress on slightly more challenging rivers, those usually are going to involve rapids which are more challenging again than we're ready for, or unrunnable rapids for whatever reason, whether that's trees across the river or some kind of man-made feature that we can't go through. So we need to be pretty dialed in at portaging, and if you don't practice it all the time, it's a skill which can be a bit foreign to some people, right? Because mostly you're just carrying your boat from the car park at the start to the start of the river, and then from the end of the river back to whoever's car you're in to get out of there. So if you don't practice it all the time, it can be difficult. You're carrying a boat plus your equipment, sometimes like breakdown paddles, first aid kits, maybe overnight gear. That boat you're carrying can get quite heavy quite quickly, and it's in an unwieldy, awkward position, kind of balanced on your shoulder there. So you do want to have a bit of practice under your belt for how to kind of make that work for you, how to carry your boat, how to have it sitting comfortably on your shoulder so that you can go uphill, downhill, overcome obstacles like trees, big rocks, whatever, etc. Main considerations to consider when you're portaging is how to manage your boat and paddle. I'm mostly just shoulder carrying all the time. I like to make sure that the hip pad of my kayak sits right on my shoulder, and then my arm will be kind of straight out and holding on to the handle. Like in the Jackson boats, they have this fabric handle which goes through the middle of the center column. I know other boats have a plastic handle or a centerpiece or whatever, where you're holding onto the foot peg. Whatever it is that works for you, however you find that comfortable spot. For me, as long as I've got that hip pad on my shoulder, I know I'm good, because that's going to keep me in a comfortable place. And the boat's going to stay pretty balanced on my shoulder. I do swap shoulders pretty frequently. I have a better side and a worse side, even when I'm just practicing my portaging. So when we're on a long hike in or a longer hike out, even if just I've got my car parked really far away, I'll do my best to try and work on my weak shoulder as much as I can, although it's really tempting not to. And I just, it's easier, it feels nicer to be on my one good side. I'll try and work on my other side so I'm a bit more even. That's really important for some portages, especially if you're on a steep hill, if you're like traversing. You might not be able to have your shoulder on your good side because it's going to tip you off balance and push you down the hill. It's really important to be somewhat level so that you're prepared for anything. In terms of deliberate practice with this series, I'm often talking about things that you can do to deliberately improve your portaging skills, and by direct skills I mean like going up and down hill, going over obstacles, going around things, kind of route finding, finding that comfortable position to carry your boat in. There's two main ways that you can deliberately practice portaging. One is to portage more often, which is not an option, but obviously you'll be kayaking less. And the option I prefer is what I call a reverse portage. So if there's a rapid which has a bunch of good eddies on, or a specific move you want to do repeatedly, a reverse portage would be to run that rapid and then walk back upstream, carrying your boat, and then run the rapid again. So you get kind of two bites of the apple, if you like. Now, the reason I think this is really useful is because you're actually using the same skills that you would use to portage around a rapid, right? You're still carrying your boat, you're still finding your way back upstream or finding a route. You're still going to encounter obstacles that you're going to have to go up and over. And these are the skills that are going to come up most often when you're actually having to portage for real in real life. Now, the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the more you get stronger at just having your boat in that position on your shoulder and keeping it balanced, the easier you get. Also, some other things to not discount is sometimes I do drag my boat, not all the time because it is quite hard on your boat, but there's definitely times where I want to be more stable on my feet, and I'll be dragging my boat right behind me, especially if it's a really wet, really slippery location that I'm in. I'll switch from dragging, or I'll push it ahead of me. Once it's solid, I'll keep holding on to it and then climb up a little bit, push it ahead of me again, etc, etc, etc. That's really only for like steep, like up and down ledge spots, like this one in Quebec. But these do come up all the time, and the more you're paddling, the more you're likely to encounter them, right? So you've got to be ready. The reason we train is so you can be ready for anything, and this is a great skill that you do need to improve, because you are going to run into more and more portages as we continue to progress our kayaking. My final note on portaging, and this is just a note in general for leveling up, is you shouldn't have to get help with your spray deck to put it back on. This is kind of a key point, and might even appear in a separate video down the line, but you should be able to put your spray deck back on by yourself. Now, if you've got a boat that spray deck that's the wrong size for your boat, you need to probably think about getting a new one as soon as possible. If you are struggling, maybe leave your spray deck on your boat for a few weeks when you're not paddling it. All the time you're not paddling it, that's going to help stretch out the rubber randing around the outside so it becomes a better fit. You obviously don't want a spray deck that's too big for your boat, because that's going to come off all the time, and that's very dangerous in its own right. But you do want to just make sure that you can do that on your own. That will mean you get to practice a bit more, because as long as the people you're with know that you're doing this reverse portage situation because you want to practice your portaging a bit, or you want to run a certain rapid a bit more often. And the other cool thing you can do with that reverse portaging idea is you can practice moves over and over again, right? So if you know there's a really good eddy out ferry move you want to make, you can practice it a few times and you get the benefit of practicing your portaging skills as well. So it's like kind of a double win, or you can make it into a double win if you just think about how can I put the effort in to find a path that's not just like, you know, walking up a few rocks right in the river. Final note on portaging is you do also want to have some familiarity with lowering your boat. I've made a series of videos on rope skills last year, and I'll try and leave a link in the description, but you should know how to lower your boat down a steep grade and have the equipment with you to do that. You don't need very much. It's some webbing, a carabiner, throw bag, maybe a prosec. So it's small stuff, but that's going to make a big difference too, and that's another thing you should be practicing in this level up journey that we're on. All right, I'll see you in next week's video. Peace.